Hey everyone, welcome back to Project Honesty, a podcast designed for young adults by a young adult to gain brutally honest, friend-like advice, as well as provide a platform for young adults to form opinions, color outside of the lines, take deep dives into current events, and most importantly, have fun. This is Project Honesty, navigating reality with real conversations and diverse opinions. Hey, I hope everyone has had a great week. I hope you all are doing well and enjoying May-long weekend, which is exciting. I know that I am because I'm here in the studio recording, so it makes me really happy to be back. If you aren't on any of Project Honesty's social media, which I highly recommend you're on because I give a lot of spoilers and I tell you guys what the topics are on there, so you can go on Instagram, it's project_honesty24, or you can go to the TikTok, which is project.honesty. I think I posted this on the TikTok, but you would know that the next episode, I guess today's episode, is going to be talking about the conflict in Palestine. I've split this up into two parts, so this is the first part in this conversation around Palestine and the conflict that's happening there. And then next week, I will also go further into the conflict and things that are happening as a result of one of the parties involved. But today, I just want to talk about the start of the war and the history behind it, and important moments that really were catalysts to this intense war, and general facts about this conflict. And so this is going to be more of a past and present 2-week plan. So this week's episode will be focused on the past and things that led up to the war. And then next week, we'll be talking more about current things that are happening in Gaza that are really, really important to talk about. Just a little bit of a trigger warning for this 2-part series. There will be mentions of death statistics in the region. We're going to talk about terrorism, mass genocide, ethnic cleansing. We're also going to be discussing violence and military brutality, as well as discussing the violence that happens in that region. We're also, next week, more so, going to be listening to clips from people and children that live in Gaza. So that may be quite disturbing. It will definitely be very heartbreaking and disturbing for me to put that on here, but it's important to get the real facts straight from the source. And I think that a great way to gain empathy for a situation is hearing the side of the people that are actually in that situation. So that's pretty important to me to put in. So that will be more next episode when I talk about what's happening in Gaza currently. But today is more focused on the past. Now, also, before I start, I just want to talk a little bit about my approach to this series. Now, you might have seen the statement that I put on Project Honesty's TikTok in the caption. You can go look at that now if you want, but you don't have to because I'm kind of going to reiterate it on here. I think before I start the series, it's important to let everyone know where I stand. I may not be Palestinian or have any roots or connections in my ancestry to Gaza or any of the parties involved, but I am human. And I stand with the people of Palestine, and I refuse to condone the horrific and inhumane actions Israel has taken against the Palestinian people. It is not humane what they're doing, and we're going to get into that a little bit today, but more so next week again. And so I just wanted to put out where I stand. If you choose to stand on the other side of this conflict, I would recommend listening to this episode and the next episode because I'm not trying to pick a fight. All I'm doing is saying facts and statistics that you can't argue with. And if you do stand with Israel, I recommend that when you listen to these episodes, have an open mind and listen to the Palestinian people and gain a new perspective. That's all this is about. You gotta gain perspective to understand a situation fully. You have to understand both sides, whether you want to or not. You have to. Just wanted to put my approach out there before I start. I think a lot of people understand a little bit about what's going on in Palestine right now, but I'm going to go over the region of the world it's in, and then we're going to go through a giant timeline of events that have led up to this conflict. So the parties involved in this conflict are Palestine and Israel, and the region of the world that it's in is the Middle East. I think it's on, you'll see it, I might put a map on Instagram so you guys can go check that out, just so you know where in the world we are. So looking at a timeline of events that lead up to the war, I went as far back as it was necessary. I didn't go to like the 1800s. We're going to start in 1947. This is when the United Nations made a resolution called Resolution 181. It was basically the division of British-mandated Palestine, and it separated the two into two states, the Arab state and the Jewish state, which now we know is Palestine and Israel. During this proposition of this resolution, the Arab state rejected it. They were unhappy with this resolution, but unfortunately, their concerns never really got properly addressed. Going ahead a year to 1948, Israel became an official state on May 14th of that year, and this was a big deal. Israel becoming an official state really seems like the catalyst in the situation to why this war even started and the conflict between the two, because in 1948, the first Arab and Israeli war started. Israel invaded Palestine and surrounding countries like Egypt and Lebanon, as well as Syria, to gain maximum territory possible, to have more control over the region. So in 1949, Israel ended up winning, and they remained independent. During this war, Israel claimed 75% of Palestinian land. Due to this, over 700,000 Palestinian people became displaced. And from there, the territory that was claimed was divided into three states: Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. I also will put a map of this on the Instagram as well. Jumping ahead, in 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization was created. You'll hear me refer to it as the PLO. Its original leader, Ahmad Shakuri, who was now succeeded by Mahmoud Abbas. The goal of the PLO was the destruction of Israel and the formation of a Palestinian state and advocating for Palestine to become an official country. And the PLO also recognized the use of arms and terrorism to be successful in this push. The PLO kind of marked the first real push and commitment for Palestine to become independent. And the PLO was also committing a lot of terrorist acts against the Israeli state due to the anger that they had from the war in 1949. In 1967, there was something called the 6-Day War. The coalition of Arab nations, including what is now Palestine, as well as Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, fought Israel. Unfortunately, Israel had an overwhelming victory that was kind of unexpected. In this war, Israel ended up gaining more Arab territory, which was a crucial safety buffer for Israel and the state of Israel. And that is something that also reunified Jerusalem. So through that war, Israel only gained things rather than lost things, which was the original goal of this war. Again, through this war, Israel has also decided to claim and capture the states of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Eastern Jerusalem. Before, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip were independent, assigned states, but after the 6-Day War, Israel decided to take control of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Though the coalition of the Arab nations lost this war, the fight for Palestinian nationalism rose, and the dynamic between the two states of Palestine and Israel remained extremely tense. In 1972, the first major Palestinian terrorist attack towards Israel was committed. It was at the Munich Olympics in Germany, and it was committed by a group called Black September, was a partial group member of the PLO. In this terrorist attack, 11 Israeli Olympic competitors were held hostage and eventually killed, and the goal of this attack was to gain international attention to the problems that Palestinians face when their territory is controlled by Israel. And this really showed the world that Palestine had the ability to terrorize and organize big attacks towards high-profile individuals in Israel. Outside of committing those acts in Israel, they were able to do it in a foreign country. In 1987, we see the first Intifada, which is a widespread Palestinian protest and group of uprisings and violence and just overall civil disobedience against Israel and the people that live in Israel. And Palestinian people were very, very frustrated over Israel's control over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And there was a lot of economic hardships and a general lack of progress towards pushing for Palestine to be an independent state. This whole intifada really shifted the region's political landscape. And then jumping ahead just 1 year to 1988, Palestine finally gained independence of November in this year. So this is the part of the timeline where I'm going to skip a bunch of things in my research. There's a lot that happens in between 1988 and 2024. So I have a couple little points in between that, but then I'm going to just know I'm jumping a little bit. So from 2000 to 2005, there were more uprisings, and then there was a second intifada with bus bombings and suicide bombings, and there was the first real armed confrontations from Palestinians to Israeli military forces. So from 2005, things just kept escalating. There was more uprisings and more terrorist attacks. In 2021, there was an 11-day war between Israel and Hamas. I don't want to go into specifics of who Hamas is right now, but you can go Google more facts and get yourself more educated on what Hamas is. So during this 11-day war, there was intense airstrikes from Israel in Palestinian territory. And so this is where we see Israel doing things that are really, really harming the people of Palestine. So jumping to October 2023, on October 7th, Palestine had enough. They were sick of their territory being controlled by Israeli forces, and they started launching attacks on Israel in an attempt to gain back their land, freedom, and people. Now I'm going to talk about disappearing Palestine. If you want to learn more about that, you can Google it. There's actually a whole book about disappearing Palestine, and it shows there's a lot of maps showing how the land has shrunk over the last few decades. I will also put that on the Instagram. So since 1946, Palestinian land has shrunk intensely due to Israel's need for more land, as well as colonialistic practices, and Israel enforced ethnic cleansing on Palestinians. Israel has claimed most of Palestinian land as their own, when in actuality, it isn't their land at all. When doing research for this episode, it seems that Israel has committed a great amount of land theft, which I think that's an international law that you're not supposed to break, but of course they had to break it. So if you Google disappearing Palestine, that's all you have to Google. You'll see images of how the Palestinian land has slowly been shrinking due to Israeli theft. Jumping back into the timeline a little bit, after the Hamas-led attack on Israel in October of 2023, Israel came in hot and began using intense military forces that killed over 21,000 Palestinian people. 1/3 of those people were children. And this counterattack from Israel resulted in 60% of homes in Palestine being destroyed. Now, on top of the first armed counterattack from Israel, Israel also decided to strengthen the over a decade blockade against Palestine that cut off more of their food, water, and supply resources as well as electricity to the area. This is another big driving factor into why there's an all-over humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And Israel in this war already has broken multiple international humanitarian laws, some of which include killing journalists and innocent civilians, and bombing hospitals in the Gaza Strip. I don't know if any of you have seen videos of hospitals in Gaza getting bombed. It is extremely upsetting. I was debating showing, or I guess listening to some clips on here of the sounds of hospitals getting bombed, but frankly, I don't even want to hear it because I've heard it enough, and that was my inspiration to this episode, is because I'm angry about that. You don't bomb a hospital, okay? You do not bomb a hospital with children and innocent people in it. What kind of people are you to bomb a hospital? Are you kidding me? That is insane to me. As of now, 35,000 people have died in Gaza due to direct and intentional attacks from Israel. Around 13,000 of those people are children, and another 12,000 children have been seriously injured by these attacks. Along with that, 92 Palestinian journalists have died, compared to the only 1,300 people that have died in Israel due to this conflict. Looking at these statistics and the death toll, take a wild guess into who's wrong. You can't call something biased when the facts are sitting right in front of you. Next week's episode, I will take a further dive into the lives of Palestinian children and the result of the horrific actions and inhumane attacks from Israel and what toll that has taken on the lives of Palestinians. We will listen to clips of their voices and hear their pain. We'll also look at how young people in the West are responding to this issue and how the media in the West is responding to this issue, as well as how it's helping spread awareness of this topic. I just use this episode to give everyone a backstory on this issue if they didn't already know about it. Now, this is a very complex issue. I had to do a lot of learning in this process, but it was important to me because I have Palestinian friends. But not just that. Again, I am human. You don't kill children, and you sure as hell don't bomb fucking hospitals, okay? Next episode, I will talk about the actions that you can take to support Palestine and go into what organizations have been helping Palestine. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Project Honesty. You can find Project Honesty on Spotify at Project Honesty or on YouTube at Project_Honesty. And to keep up to date with new episodes, you can head over to Project Honesty's Instagram, which is at Project_Honesty24. We also have a TikTok, which is at .projecthonesty. To help spread this podcast everywhere, tell a friend or share with family about Project Honesty, and you can direct them over to the Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, or YouTube to help them learn more. The more listeners, the bigger the family.